Hi everyone, Lewis Jones here from Chap Research, presenting a seminar series on SolidWorks. In this series, I'm going to go over how to get started with SolidWorks, working with part files and assembly files, so that you can take the Certified SolidWorks Associates exam. And you should be able to pass it pretty easily after going through these lessons. So let's get right to it. Go and open SolidWorks, and you should see this logo pop up to open your first file. Go into File, Open, and go ahead and download this file from the comments section below and open it. You should see a screen like this pop up. This is the stock assembly view. So this is an assembly file. As you can see, there are a bunch of different parts in it. To actually start navigating in SolidWorks, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And then you can move the camera around the objects by pressing down on the scroll wheel and moving the mouse around. And make sure you're using a mouse with this. You can't really use SolidWorks with a touchpad. So play around with that, get used to that. Again, push down on the scroll wheel to move the camera around. You can pan the camera sideways and I guess up and down if you hold down Control while pressing down on the scroll wheel. And you can move objects inside assemblies simply by clicking them and dragging. Click and drag. And when they highlight like that, that means that I've selected a surface. And you can deselect by pressing the background. Alright, so get used to navigating around in SolidWorks because you really want to get the fundamentals down with this before you start designing stuff. On the left here, you see this menu. This is the design tree. So in assemblies, the design tree keeps track of all the different part files that are in the assembly. So as you can see here, these are all the different cubes inside this Rubik's Cube. On the top section, you see the ribbon. The ribbon's got a bunch of different tabs on it. You're not going to see half of these because I added them in later. But that doesn't really matter because you're only really going to use the assembly tab. So let's start putting the Rubik's Cube together. So you could, emphasis on could, just move these objects into the right places and, call it good. But it might be like this where it only looks right from one angle. And let's say you have these two objects right next to each other and you want them to stick together. Well, if you move one of them, they're obviously not going to retain their positions relative to each other. So to get around that, they have the mate tool. So in the assembly tab, there's the mate function. And what the mate function does is it creates a reference between two different objects. So if I click on this surface and if I click on this surface, I can get them to line up to be in the same plane like this. I can actually flip them around if I press this button right here. So now it actually looks kind of right. You can do the same thing with these buttons. And all these buttons here are different mating schemes. So if you just click parallel, now you can move it. And they're not necessarily going to stay in the same plane. Coincident is the one that you want to use if you want them to be in the same plane. Perpendicular, you can do different distances. If I say like 20 inches, it'll fly way off down there. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and mate these together like so. And you can see even after I click check to get out of the mating menu, you can still move this around and it's still going to retain that same reference. I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple more mates to get this cube locked in. So you can press the check button here, you can press the check button here. Um, you can actually right click right after you select the different surfaces to check it off. And now that we have 3 different mates on this cube, it is set in place. I can't move it anymore. It is locked in with the rest of the Rubik's Cube. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together now. Put the entire Rubik's Cube together. All right. Let's say you screw up one of the mates and you accidentally say okay to it. You can go back and change that mate by going into the design tree, and at the very bottom you should see um, this little button that says mates. If you click on the plus sign next to it, it'll open up all the different mates that you have inside the assembly. Um, and they're ordered in the list of the oldest mates to the most recent mates. So these are the mates that we just made just now. You can right click on it, click edit feature to change what surfaces are being referenced together, or you can change what mate they are. Pretty handy. Well, we have a pretty good looking cube, but it is missing a one of its smaller cubes. So we're gonna go ahead and make one to match this. Go ahead and click on Files, create a new file, click Part. You can double click on that to open up a new part. And you might get a menu that asks for different units that you're going to use inside here. Um, I like to stick with inch, pound, second, just because I'm from America. But you can change it up to whatever dimensions or units you need. Um, so we're gonna make a cube. To start off a cube, what you have to do is you have to make a two-dimensional sketch. The way SolidWorks works is that you create two-dimensional sketches, and then you're gonna extrude them out. So you're gonna pull out the two-dimensional sketch into the third dimension, and you'll understand it in a minute. So click Sketch in the Sketch tab. 3 different uh, planes pop up. These are the different planes that are generated automatically with the new part file. It doesn't matter which one you select. I'm gonna go with the top plane. The camera is automatically gonna move to be facing that plane, and you're ready to start sketching. So since we're doing a cube here, I'm gonna go ahead and click on the rectangle, and then select center rectangle. Click on the origin, click anywhere else to drop off the rectangle. There we go. We have a rectangle. Now, this is blue. The lines are blue, meaning that they aren't completely defined yet. So if I click on a line, I can move it around. If I click on a corner, I can change the size of the cube. The one thing that doesn't change is the center of the box, because I selected the origin as the center, and there are now references or relations that say that this box has to be centered around the origin. Now, to actually set the correct dimensions for this, I'm going to go into the Smart Dimension tool. With the Smart Dimension tool, you can select a line or any 2 objects and define how far they are going to be from each other. The Rubik's Cube has 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cubes, excuse me. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this line and say 1 inch. You're going to notice that these 2 lines turned black. The reasoning for that is that this is a box, or it's a rectangle. So when you generate it, this line is always going to be perpendicular to this one, and this is always going to be perpendicular to this one. Therefore, when you set the length of this line, these two lines on the top and bottom, whoops, I just exited the sketch. If you accidentally exit it, you can click on this button to get back into it. But yeah, so these two lines are now a set distance apart, but you can still move this side to side because nothing defines how far this is from that line, which we're going to define now. Click these two different lines and you can select a new smart dimension. 1 by 1 square. It is perfect. Go into features, extruded boss base. Excuse me, I went a little too fast there. This is the sketch section, so you can make whatever shapes you want, really. But when you're ready to pull it into the third dimension, you need to go into the Features tab and click on Extruded Boss Base. What this feature does is it basically pulls whatever is in 2 dimensions into the third dimension by literally just making another face on top of it and then connecting the corners. That wasn't really the best explanation, but you kind of get the idea. I'm going to put 1 into the height since it is a cube, and you're going to see this yellow cube represents what it's going to look like. Now, I personally hate it when the origin is at an awkward place. Like, intuitively, it makes sense for me if the origin is at the center of the cube. And when you start getting into complex designs, it's a lot nicer if the origin is at like a reasonable location. So the way I do that is I can go into here, this little drop-down menu, and you can select you can select which direction it's going to extrude to. So if I click mid-plane, it's going to make it so that the sketch I started out with is going to be in the middle of the extrusion. And I like this because now the origin is in the center. Click check, and you have a three-dimensional cube. Congratulations. Now if we go back to the assembly, and you can switch between different assemblies and different parts you have open by clicking the window option right here. You're going to notice these corners are rounded. The reasoning for that is I created fillets on the edges when I made those cubes. So in the features section, you have all these options. Over here is a function called fillet. By the way, this is pronounced fillet, not fillet. It is never fillet. You don't eat cubes. This function allows you to round edges, cut a corner. So you can select individual edges to round them. So this is just a preview. I haven't okayed yet. I haven't clicked the green check, so it hasn't actually happened yet. But it's nice because it shows you how it's going to look afterwards. So things like the corner where I don't really know what to expect, it shows you what it's going to look like. So you can select individual edges, or you can select entire surfaces to select all the edges that are connected to the surface. So now that I have all the edges selected, I can change what the diameter of the rounding is. So I think I set it to 0.05 with the other cubes. So I'm going to set it to that. And yeah, if you don't want it to preview everything, like if you're selecting like 200 different edges, you might not want all that yellow on your screen. So you can select no preview to get rid of those yellow lines, or you can do partial preview where it's the most recent edge that you selected, but up to you. Click check, and you have your cube. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save this file. I'm gonna name it cube seminar. Save it wherever you would like, and go back to your assembly. So now to drop in the new cube, you can click Insert Components in the Assembly tab. And then it should automatically be in this section. So these are all the other documents that you have open in SolidWorks. So again, if it wasn't very clear, in SolidWorks, I have two different documents open right now. It's like, if you have if you have Google Chrome open, you can have a bunch of different tabs open. It's kind of like that where I have different objects and different windows. So I can select whatever other documents I have open, or I can also go browse for that cube that I just created, whichever you would like. After you select that, you're going to see it follows your cursor now, and you can just drop it in the view area. And the Insert Components menu automatically goes away after you drop it off. I'm going to make some new mates to connect this correctly with the assembly. And voila, you can't even tell that that was a new cube. Hey guys, so I forgot to cover in the video earlier that there are some tools you can use to measure different parts of this object. So there's a tool called Measure Tool that allows you to check how far two different surfaces or features are. So 3 inches makes sense since they're all 1-inch cubes. You can also find things like the distance between these two edges, between these two corners, and it even tells you things like the total area of the selected surfaces. So pretty useful measuring tool. And then there's the mass properties tool that you can use to find the overall mass of the object. So this is in grams right now, but you can change that in the options. Let me get pounds. So yeah, this is overall assembly is 0.97 pounds. And it even tells you where the center of mass is. So this pink uh, coordinate system is the center of the mass of the assembly. So pretty useful tools. Sometimes when you're working on assemblies, um, you have to figure out whether this one object is going to be able to interact with, whatever you're trying to move around. And for instances like that, the measuring tool is very useful. And mass properties is useful if you have to hit, a certain mass limit. So those are the two tools that I mainly use to measure and calculate masses and stuff like that. So that about wraps it up, guys. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this was a good way to get started with SolidWorks. I'm going to be doing some more videos um, over more complex parts and assemblies. So please keep your eyes open for those and watch them, and they'll definitely help you improve your SolidWorks skills. So thanks a lot, and see you all later.